Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're into our last panel for the day, which is called An Honest Approach to Governance. It's also a continuation of the previous panel on returning integrity to government. Now, our first speaker is an institution in Australia and a profound political philosopher. John Shipton is a veteran anti-war activist, but is best known for his tireless advocacy on behalf of his son, Julian Assange. John's advocacy has taken him around the world to engage with high-level officials in many countries, including his own. He was the subject of the documentary Ithaca, A Fight to Free Julian Assange, aired by the ABC in 2022. John Shipton is a close collaborator and friend of war crimes whistleblower David McBride, and recently met with David in prison in Canberra. At a recent birthday party of John's where he turned 80, John came up to me and said, "Craig, do you think I should go to Russia to the BRICS conference?" And I said, "Absolutely, John, you should go." Because I went there in 2015 and I found it a fantastic experience. And I was the only Australian there. Now, John has just returned from the Kazan BRICS summit in Russia. He was there in October. There were 2 Aussies there. So in about 100 years' time, we might have more than about 20. Anyway. So please welcome John to discuss true transparency in government, support and protect whistleblowers.
A lot of comrades here have been, and many barriers fighting for Julian and a bit of decent application of the laws of Australia. So good to be amongst friends. Just a couple of light-hearted things to start. In Kazan, I had a message from a young woman who was the ABC journalist attached to the BRICS conference. I sent her a message saying, "I can meet you tomorrow morning at downtown Kazan. I've got a couple of hours to spare from 8 till 10. And she replied, "Oh, I'm not in Kazan, I'm not in Russia, I'm overseas." Staggering, huh? The ABC's journalist attached to the BRICS conference, which included 40% of the world's population, the most prominent of the cultural civilizations, Russia, China, Iran, and India. They couldn't send somebody to Kazan. I mean, it's just absurd. Okay, let's start. Heraclitus. War is the mother of all things. That's the internal war to transcend and have some organising capacity over yourself, and the external war that's been raging against ordinary people for the last 4 decades. How can I demonstrate that? Neoliberalism as a culture. Population growth in Australia declining for the last 30 years. 1.5 children per woman. Reproduction rate, 2.1. We're inert, you might say sterile. Neoliberalism as a culture. South Korea, 0.6 women, 0.6 children per woman. Japan, in 50 years' time, its population will halve. Italy, 1.67 children per woman. Germany. Germany was the centrepiece. The Germanic peoples, if you take from northern Italy up to and including Russia in 1905, it's the dynamism of Western culture. 40% of women 39 and over have no children. Sterile or inert. That's the phenomenon of neoliberalism in its fullness. Next, financial entropy. The more finance has, the more influence over a society, it enters a period of entropy and declines and begins a decline. And it gets caught within it because the complexity of finance spreading through everything. My home, oh, John, you shouldn't add another room, you're overcapitalising. But it's for the guests to come. Oh, but you're overcapitalising. It's absurd to think that the home that I bring up my children in, that I have the little bit of argy-bargy with my wife in, the silence and erotic content of the bedroom, the stage upon which I offer to my loved ones hospitality. And we all know that hospitality is sacred. It's a sacred gift that we give each other. It's a treasure. Hang on to it. Don't capitalise. Don't capitalise your sacred hospitality. Next. I'm going to cover a lot of ground, and I'll cover it in a way that they're thinking pieces. You pour thought on them, and they grow. Okay. Northwest Shelf of Australia. We produce, in the Northwest Shelf, about the same amount of gas as Qatar or the United States. It goes up and down, but around about the same. Qatar, income per annum from the gas they produce is $29 billion per annum each year. Australia gets 800 million. Development costs similar. Some Australians negotiated that contract. They negotiated that. They sat down. I mean, it's staggering. I think one of them became a director of the company that was doing the exploitation of the deposits. Won't bother with his name. United States, Trump and war. In 2022, at the bequest of the National Security Defence of the United States, the RAND Corporation produced a report which said this, that all peers and near peers, if we went to war against them, we would be defeated. Okay. And the report went on to conclude that the American people weren't, I've forgotten the word, but weren't inculcated with the understanding that the United States was no longer a unipower, and that would cause, the defeat would cause the breakup of the United States, or begin the breakup of the United States. Consequently, we need another war. but there's no easy wars left. They've ruined everything. Next, the destruction of the Ummah. This is a word which you can picture as an umbrella covering all of those who, what we call followers of Islam, the Ummah. They destroyed Afghanistan and converted it into an opium paradise. They destroyed Iraq. Millions dead. They destroyed Libya. They destroyed Syria. They want to destroy Iran. They're fluffing themselves up for a big fight with Iran. They destroyed the government of Egypt, Somalia, Yemen, Sudan. They want to destroy those things that bind us together to have an outlook that cares for each other. Within the Ummah, they have the tradition of charity. It's a responsibility. You cannot be in the Ummah and be uncharitable. Each person born within Islam comes to this place, provisioned for their journey in this place. That provides an understanding that when we speak with people who are followers of Islam, their voices are soft, not like mine, that contains some tension, but their voices are soft because they are fully provisioned for their journey here. Why contemplate destroying that? It's monstrous. You know, there's a singular thing which us human beings create, which is magnificent. Of course, we worry about this and we have doubts about that and wish things were different and so on and so forth, although I don't wish any more. All my wishes were fulfilled. But we create civilizations. When you contemplate China, and the two great philosophical leaders of China, Confucius and Lao Tzu, they detested each other, so what? Some people say they didn't exist, they're compilations like the Bible. But neither of those are important. What is important is the essence of China is the Middle Kingdom and harmony. That's why we can say this. That's why 1.4 billion people get on together, because they know Tao, the trail, the way, patience to get to harmony. India, tolerance. 1.4, they're the largest country on earth now, 10 million people each year added to that total. Something to add about both of those things, though, is the increase is in decline. If people go on to you about overpopulation, just tell them to forget it. We are dying out, and they still go on to me. I get letters. You know, we're overpopulated. We're becoming a plague upon the earth. It's unpleasant to do that to each other, to reduce the standing of a human being in the face of other human beings, and go home and foster love to your wife or lover and your children. To think lesser of the phenomenon of human being. It's appalling. I fight against it constantly, all around the world. the ones who got my son out of jail, are just ordinary people. We propelled the government of Australia to take up its responsibilities. We did. Us. Each and every one of us. 97% of Australians supported Julian's return home. Sorry, 87%, shouldn't exaggerate. We did that. So walk with, I'm going to say pride, but walk with pride in being human and being Australian. They want another war. Beware. They need a war. You see, that foul thing, that spectre, that phantom emerging from the Middle East, West Asia, a genocide. What rot. The leader of that country has taken upon himself wars on 7 fronts. He's put himself in his country in extremis, deliberately, so that he can draw the United States, its protector, into a war and smash Iran. Iran. 5,000-year-old culture. Can you imagine the sort of mind would contemplate upon itself, oh, let's smash that civilization, let's ruin it. That's what we organise in Australia to resist, because we're free from that. Everybody here, each of us, look around you. We all come from somewhere. And yet the land that we walk upon has its effect upon us. And we produce great figures. John Pilger. One died, such a lovely man in his interpersonal relationships. Sweet and firm when he saw crime. Warm. He got up from his deathbed to make me a cup of tea. Well, he didn't. He leaned over like that, said, "Excuse me if I don't get up fully, John." That was an Australian. You and me. So that's what we produce here. And that's our great opportunity to assert ourselves within sovereignty. You know, sovereignty, it has a number of effects. It binds us together in an understanding that we're in it together. Secondly, it allows us to act in our own interest with clarity. That's what we do. Our interest is here. That's what we act upon. The clarity of knowing that you're a sovereign within a sovereign. Neoliberalism and its assault on the nature of nations and this thing called globalism and its excrescences called woke, it's no good to us. You know, my uncle Vivian, he was what we used to call in those days a homosexualist. That is, his erotic focus was upon other men. I asked my grandmother, oh, it's a long time past now, but I said, "Grandma, can you tell me about Vivian, please?" And she replied, "Oh, John," she used the word darling, "Oh, John, darling, Vivian is sensitive." Do you see the beauty in that? He was completely acceptable. There was no fights or anything like that. In fact, he was the cleverest one in that group of brothers and sisters. And when people were in trouble, they would come to him for a chat, and maybe he would, facilitate a loan or something like that. Yeah. As to banks and BRICS, well, let's join BRICS, okay? Put it on the list. All we have to do to join BRICS is have no sanctions. That's all. Don't have to jump hoops. Just have no sanctions. Turkey wants to join, and they have affiliations with the United States through NATO. Just have no sanctions. I think we have a few against Russia. Last comment, which is an oddity. There's a building in Moscow, 6 stories high. Oh, there's a couple of things. 2, they're both big, so I'll run with them. It's 6 stories high, and it has a display of the beginnings and the current circumstances of the power generation through nuclear. Russia recycles 7 times all of its nuclear products. Each load, if you wish, lasts 3 years, 21 years, one load. We used to send to Russia the Lucas Heights for recycle. Now we've got to bury it in the backyard. It's ridiculous. The United States can't build power stations anymore, nuclear power stations. It's got 100. Microsoft was trying to buy 3 Mile Island because AI, the demands for current are phenomenal. The intellect gathered in Rosatom in one place is like looking at a giant tree. Our organisations are organisms, and they contain stuff. And each person that enters into an organisation does so and is imbibed with the ideology of the organisation. The same in families. Oh, our family has this outlook. My family has that outlook. And you can compare them. So important to understand that if a person doesn't agree with the ideological outlet or the organic structure of an institution, the institution expels them. They become what we call mavericks, or backbenchers, if you like. Yeah, the last thing. All of these things, I run across rather too quickly, and forgive me, because there's so much going down now, it's hard to keep contact with it. 2022, China bought 520 tonnes of gold from Geneva. It's had it stored in Geneva. India, 2023, 100 tonnes from London. Brussels stealing $355 billion from Russia. Switzerland, $9 billion from Russia, stolen. Nobody trusts anybody. Singapore is building a 9-storey building which will house 10,000 tonnes of silver and 500 tonnes of gold. Understand that that's the circumstance. Debanking. I'm glad somebody mentioned that. The Canadian truckers debanked, their money stolen with no court case, just arbitrary executive power. Somebody mentioned the English politician Nigel Farage being debanked over his position in politics. Another person was debanked because they had a position about trans people. They had a neutral position rather than a positive position, so that they were expelled from that organism as being insufficient to the organism's ideology. So be aware of that. The trust is limited. So gather, as Australians, gather in our strengths and hold it here within us and within each individual and within your families. You know, I suppose I try to describe, myself to myself. What am I? And I sort of end up as a conservative socialist. I mean, I think, community health is a good idea, but it's great to have a family, and I think, I get invited. The other day, this is the last, the other day, I parked the Assange mobile outside the house. It's been there a couple of years now. Anyway, somebody ran up the road and said, John, my daughter's just had a baby, come down and have a drink. Oh, okay, all right. And I go down and he's overexcited. He said, look, let's go and see her, but I don't know her. He said, no, she'll love you, she'll love you. So we get in his car, and we go in and see this dreamy young woman with her little baby. This is John. And we go outside and celebrate new life. Welcome.
Thanks, John.